Hello and welcome back to All About Community. When we went to break, I was talking with the president of the Charles Houston Bar Association, Nichelle Holmes. Nichelle, Charles Houston Bar Association was founded in 1955. Uh, can you tell me just a little bit about what's going on today with the Charles Houston Bar Association? And I'm going to help you talk about some of the prior stuff that has gone on with the Bar Association.
Well, the Charles Houston Association has always been in the forefront of social change here in the Bay Area. They're an affiliate of the National Bar Association as well, and so now with the murder of George Floyd being in the forefront, other organizations, other affinity bars are now starting to get on board with some of the work that Charles Houston is doing. We recently formed a racial justice task force that will address community education, legislation, um, education, voter protection. So we have really a lot going on, a lot on our plates right now, as in the wake of the George Floyd murder.
And if I recall correctly, and again, I go back when I was president of Charles Houston Bar, so many years ago, I can't even remember. Matter of fact, it started in 1975. A couple of years later, John Burris became involved on behalf of the Bar Association in a case called Melvin Black. A lot of people don't know about that case, but that was one of the first cases in the Bay Area concerning police brutality, the killing of a young black 14-year-old boy. John Burris represented the Charles Houston Bar Association in the city of Oakland, and starting in that year, which I believe was 1976 and 1977, Charles Houston dedicated itself to taking on a number of issues, including representing the NAACP in a case where the Police Officers Association, every time there was a complaint about police brutality, guess what? The Oakland Police Officers Association, San Francisco Police Officers Association would sue the NAACP for complaining about it, and was hoping that nobody would represent them. But Charles Houston Bar Association voluntarily represented them and defeated them in court. Charles Houston has a long history of involvement in the civil rights struggle. Not only that, Charles Houston Bar Association sued the Alameda County Bar Association and get this, the County of Alameda, when it decided that only old lawyers could represent murder cases. And as a result of that suit, black lawyers were allowed to represent defendants in cases. That's just a little summary of some of the emotional stuff I get
Right.
involved
We
in.
do have a group of Charles Houston members who have come together and are doing pro bono work representing people who may have been arrested in some of the recent demonstrations. So we do have a group of lawyers doing that work. We recently signed on or wrote a letter to the state bar in support of the ethics rule change that would prohibit elected district attorneys from accepting campaign contributions from police officer associations, because obviously the elected district attorneys are the ones who investigate police officer misconduct. So we just sent that letter out. There are currently 4 elected district attorneys who've also signed on to that letter, and one of those is my boss, Dinah Beckton.
Well, let's talk about your boss. I love her. She
Yes.
is absolutely a fantastic former Superior Court judge. Tell us about D.A. Beckton.
D.A. Beckton is on the forefront of a lot of criminal justice reform, a lot of great work in the county of Contra Costa. She's facing a lot of opposition, however, as she tries to implement changes to the Juvenile Justice Center. She just created a juvenile justice task force to reimagine how we look at reform and how we incarcerate, or we need to not incarcerate young people in our county. So she's looking to close the Juvenile Justice Center and do a more restorative justice type program where she works with where we will work with a lot of community-based organizations and reimagining how we deal with young people who end up in the system.
Now, I guess, do they still call it Martinez Boys Hall or whatever it is?
I believe it's called the Byron's Boys
Oh,
Ranch.
yeah, exactly. Byron Boys Ranch.
That's
So
full
she's
of-
thinking about closing that?
Yeah, and one of the first things she did when she was elected or appointed first was to visit the boys' ranch and all black and brown boys. And so that was very upsetting. It's a disturbing thing to see. And especially when you realize that just the inequities and the injustice that our kids face and how people of color, young black boys are sent to the ranch where the white boys get to go home with their parents, you know? And so she's really been working hard to reimagine and working in a collaborative effort to reimagine how we see juvenile justice and really work toward a more reform model.
Good. Charles, I think I'd indicated before, Charles Houston himself said a lawyer is either a social engineer or, or a parasite on society. How does that relate to you in terms of your perception of a lawyer?
Well, my perception, I feel like it's, for me, a gift from God. And my purpose is to give back to the community. I wouldn't be here had it not been for the community, had it not. And so that's my purpose in life, is to fight for justice in all parts of the justice system. So it's not, some people think I'm a sellout because I'm a prosecutor. I totally disagree. And so one of the things that I have dedicated my life to is community service, mentoring law students, going out to the community, being the best lawyer and person that I could be, so that the next generation of lawyers will be able to, you have to train them up to kind of take over for you.
So I think you're right on target, because that's, in my view, exactly what Charles Hamilton Houston meant when he said a lawyer is either a social engineer or a parasite on society. In other words, if a lawyer isn't doing something constructive to uplift his or her community, then that lawyer is nothing more than a simple parasite. Don't touch that remote. We will be right back talking with Nichelle Holmes, president of the Charles Houston Bar Association, on All About Community.